Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to be going over 5 tips that I think every single Shaco player needs to know. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is LowFit. I do educational content, I do tips videos and guide videos, and I really think that Shaco is in a great spot after his recent rework, and I know that there's going to be a lot of new players that might come and look at Shaco, so I want to help out those people specifically. I am a bit limited due to this format, so if you have your own tips outside of what I cover with the 5 that I'm going to go over, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. If you're curious about my experience, peaked at Diamond 2 Elo, and let's get right into the video. The number one tip that I really want to go over and really get just stuck in your guys' minds to always be thinking about when you're playing Shaco, particularly for the people that have only played the previous iterations of Shaco, is that there is no longer a cooldown on your backstep. So you will always get that increased additional damage that is based off your level and base AD that is going to be able to be consistently applied when you are auto-attacking an enemy champion. So staying behind them is always going to be a very good way to approach the fights. And it is very easy to understand if you are on the sides, if you are getting that backstab off or not. As you can see, a basic auto attack animation from the front. He is using one dagger to strike the enemy target, but when you are behind them, he is using both of his daggers at the same time. If you're not looking at the numbers and you don't really know, there's also a difference in the audio cue. So the two ways you can tell if you're getting behind the target for the additional damage is if you get the double blade attack and the difference in the sound animation when you are hitting the enemy target. So make sure to consistently proc this as much as possible, particularly in the early game. Getting this little bit of extra damage can really be the difference between getting that kill or not getting that kill, and just being able to be behind the target as much as possible. And that will wrap up tip number 1 for Shaco. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, I really want to talk about one of Shaco's key elements that you really need to respect and take full advantage of when you are playing Shaco. I want to talk about playing with Fog of War is going to be so insanely important, and setting up traps for your enemies. So everyone knows exactly what the hallucinate does, but you can do a lot of different things with it that is going to catch the enemy off guard. If you're using your hallucinate when you are outside of the enemy's line of sight, they are going to think that you have not used your ultimate yet, and that is the main target. So if you're looking to bait someone into a bad all-in or maybe into a patch of traps, sometimes it might be a good idea to use your hallucinate when you are outside of Fog of War. Also, you can use it, you can duck into a lane bush and throw out your hallucinate that way and catch the enemy off guard. They might use a big cooldown. This is really important when you're playing against champions like Fiora or Fizz, something with a really high impact ult that is just a really big all-in tool. If you can bait that out with your ultimate and then also get the splash damage it does when they kill that target, it is really going to turn around a laning phase, and you really can outplay the enemy laners quite hard by using the Fog of War. So always look to take advantage of just stepping out of the line of sight of your enemy. It's going to do a couple of things. First of all, it's going to cause the enemy laner to ping that you're missing, because Shaco has a really good amount of roam potential, because they're usually taking ignite and they have the deceive to get in really close to the enemy laners if they are popping behind bottom, if they're roaming into mid lane. So there are a lot of different things that it causes when you are outside of the line of sight of your enemy. So always when you have the opportunity and there's nothing to be doing in lane, look to deny vision of yourself, and it is just going to be very good. Also, placing your boxes when you're outside of vision is going to be very good, because it is obviously a very obvious animation where you're throwing your box and they can see it for a limited amount of time. So just taking advantage of the Fog of War is really going to help increase your Shaco play, and that will wrap up tip number 2. Alright, and getting into tip number 3, I want to talk about a new thing that was added with the increased amount of damage you get out of your execute on your E now, because it also gets the bonus from your passive, and it gets just overall big buff with 150% increased damage. As you see with the full build here, it's going to be doing about 800 damage, which is just going to be extremely strong with taking out squishies. So it does have a limited cooldown of 5.6 seconds. So you want to think about how the all-in is going to go. Is it going to be a consistent fight where the enemy is going to take a while to kill the enemy and they do not really have any escape tools? You might want to look to just pop your E pre 30% damage if you're going to be in a long, consistent trade. But if you're in a trade against an enemy that is going to be very short, say it's an enemy that is going to be something like an Ari that can just bounce away extremely quickly, just try and get out as much damage as possible. But if you're able to have an electrocute, do a good amount of burst, and not need your E pre-execute, and you're not going to be able to get 2 rotations out, what you want to look to do is save your 2-ship poison to use it as an execute. Think of it more of an ergot alt, and it can pay off some dividends. Obviously, this is going to take a good amount of understanding of how much damage your box is going to get off, as well as your auto attacks and backstabs that you might want to look to save your E. Obviously, using your ignite early to get them down to that 30%, lower than 30% HP threshold is going to be extremely important too. So whenever you can, particularly in ganks where they're obviously in a 2v1, so they're always going to be running away to the turret, and you're only going to get one of these shivs off, you want to look to use its full power with its execute, and that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and for the next tip, I want to talk real quickly about kind of a cool little trick you can do with Shaco, and that is using the blast cone to pop over boxes when you are looking for picks on the enemy, particularly when they're looking to get vision control around the objectives, because the blast cones are both positioned around the 2 objective sides, being one on the dragon side and one being on the baron side. So if you didn't know, you can always pop over a couple boxes depending on where you place them on the cone. This can be very good because it can help set up a pick from kind of a unique angle, and that's all about that's really conducive to Shaco's kit. If you can get the unexpected all in on the enemy and really just get the initiative on the fight, that is really where Shaco shines. So if you're looking for something, maybe your regular traps aren't really working, no one's really falling for them, look for a little bit of a cheeky blast cone cheese on the enemy, especially if they are really roaming on your side quite a bit. Maybe there's a support that's coming up quite a bit that's annoying you when you're playing in the top lane. This is just a great way to set it up. Obviously, you'd want to have a ward over here and maybe a pink ward here, or you just make sure to sweep it out so people don't see what you're doing, and this can really just be an effective way to get a couple of early kind of cheeky kills on the enemy laners. And that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and for the final tip, I want to talk a little bit about just a regular all-in that you can look to use when you are playing Shaco that is going to be extremely effective, and that is going to be whether you're going in on a gank or you're just looking to surprise the enemy and get an assassination off on a squishy target. What you're generally going to be looking to do is deceive in, place your box when you're stealth, make sure that you are behind the target for your first auto so you are getting the extra damage from your backstab, and then you're also proccing the passive on your 2-shiv poison, so it's slowing them, giving your box some time to kind of arm before it can use its fear. And you want to use your box in the just kind of the anticipated escape route that the enemy is going to look to use to get away from you, because generally when you are looking for an assassination, you're going to win the 1v1, and then look to auto attack obviously as much as possible. If you have enough burst to get them down to 30% quickly, you might want to look to use your shiv or save your shiv before that. If you have a lot of consistent damage, whether they proc a box, you have a lot of AP, or that you are able to do a lot of burst with your deceive Q in and backstabs, you might want to save your E. But if it's going to be a rather long fight against maybe a fighter or a tank, you obviously want to be looking to use your E on cooldown. So just look to use this basic thing. You make sure to always use your box when you're stealth, because you want to kind of maximize the time you have when you are stealth, because that is when you are most protected. And if you have a dead animation that isn't really going to help mid-fight, like the Jack in the Box, you want to look to use it then. And then obviously when they have a high impact spell, something like a I don't know, like a ergot ult that is going to look to kind of slow you down and suppress you, you want to use the hallucinates invulnerability frame. So this is a lot different than kind of a dash or maybe an invisibility that would be on a different champion. This is, you just completely go off the map and you are able to dodge anything that is displayed there. So keep this in mind, that you want to really identify where the enemy's huge burst is. Maybe it's a Fiora that's looking to do the QEE proc with the Tiamat and cancel a bunch of animations. That'd be an example for a kind of a consistent damage champion. Or if it's maybe something like a Jax that's looking to stun you, that would be his highest impact spell. That's when you would want to use your hallucinate to kind of minimize that damage. So that's just kind of my basic guide to taking all-ins when you are looking to play Shaco. Again, placing your Jack-in-the-Box when you're in stealth and maximizing that uptime you have, the kind of safe time when you are stealth. Using your E dependent on how long the fight is going to last and how much burst you have outside of your E, and then using your hallucinate as a little bit of a defensive tool when they are looking to burst you. That will wrap up my guide, guys, for Shaco. If you have your own tips, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And as always, guys, take it easy.